A little bit about my background. I'm Ivon Šuinar's nephew, and I came to work at the company when I was 20 years old, intending to work here for 3 months. 47 years later, I'm still here. And what attracted me to the company when I came here in 1973 was a period of a lot of turmoil in the United States. It was still being grown in California. So we made the commitment to switch our entire sportswear line completely from conventional cotton to organic. And I very much liked the culture here, which was not authoritarian. It was very collegial. It was very open. I liked the climbers and surfers and the culture that they created. There were times in the early days when we started, we were very young managers and very green. None of us had business experience. I think that we could have become like any kind of conventional company that found success, because we had 2 periods in the 1970s and the 1980s of very, very rapid growth, of expanding our product lines. And I think we kind of lost sight of who we were and where we wanted to go. And what made a big difference for us, what set us down the road, the environmental road that we're on now, is in 1988 we opened up a store in Boston, and our employees got sick. They started calling in with stomach aches and headaches. We called in an environmental engineer who fixed the ventilation, but we said, okay, what was the agent that caused the problem? And he said, oh, that was formaldehyde off-gassing from the cotton clothes stored in your basement. So we'd been in business for a long time, and we knew the environmental implications of steel and aluminum for climbing gear. And we knew that half of our line came out of an oil well in terms of polyester and nylon. But we had thought of cotton as this benign fiber, natural fiber. So we commissioned a study of the 4 major fibers we used: wool, nylon, polyester, and cotton. We found out that cotton was by far the worst fiber, the most environmentally harmful fiber we used, primarily because of the intensive use of chemicals to grow cotton. Looked at this and we thought, you know, is there another way? And there was, because organic cotton was still being grown in China and Turkey, still being grown in Texas.
FastForward – лидирующая компания-организатор кастомизированных менеджмент-туров на рынке СНГ.
We thought we did our homework. We bought most of the organic cotton being grown in California. We bought it directly from the farmers, and we worked with the farmers so they could secure loans from the bank. When we ordered cotton from the farmers, we broke our connection to the global supply chain. Our people are saying, you know, I have to do everything I did last season. I have to design the clothes, I have to do the sizing, I have to do the colors, and I've got to raise the prices $3 to $5 on everything in my line because organic cotton is more expensive. And not a single customer has never asked us for organic cotton. But the people who had been working on the environmental side increasingly learned how harmful the conventional cotton growing practices were. And so what we've ended up doing is we ended up renting buses and taking employees 40 at a time into the cotton growing region in California. And the thing you noticed when the bus pulled up into the farming country, first thing you noticed is while you were still in the bus was the smell, because the chemicals, the organophosphates used to fertilize cotton were developed as nerve gas. Those chemicals were developed as nerve gas for World War I, and they smell the way you would expect that to smell. The point of this story is that when nobody ever came back from one of those trips saying this isn't worth it. Everybody came back saying this is a pain, this is so hard to do, but the company is doing the right thing.
How in particular do you communicate all these aspects or changes to your customers?
We sell to the customers in 3 ways. We sell to stores, outdoor stores. We have a website and a catalog, and then we have our own stores. And we've always devoted quite a lot of space in our catalogs and on our website to telling these environmental stories. We've given 1% of sales to environmental organizations for 30 years, but we tend to give to smaller organizations than Greenpeace. We give to organizations that are working to save or restore a particular patch of land or stretch of water. And these are organizations that nobody else will give to. We have an employee council. Employees elect the council, and the grant proposals come in, and twice a year we consider them all, and the employees vote on who will get them. We have guidelines as to different kinds of groups that we want to support.
How do you communicate this to your customers, that it's way better to use this type of fabrics? Because, you know, there are some pseudo ideas that paper is better than plastic. And
We're working on, we helped to start an industry association called Sustainable Apparel Coalition. And all of the major apparel and footwear companies are part of that. Gap and H&M and Levi's and Adidas, etc., Nike. And this has been going for 7 years, and what this group has worked to do is to identify the environmental processes that are better, but it's also working on a consumer-facing index, and so that a customer can take a cell phone up against a hang tag and get an environmental and a social rating on a pair of jeans, say 1 to 10 or 1 to 100.
why do your customers choose you? Is it for the environmental things that you do, for the product, for the quality?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. For the last 10 years, there's been a lot of press about Patagonia and about our practices, and we've become more vocal. So I think now maybe 2/3 of our customers think of us first for quality, and maybe 1/3 in terms of shared values, that they like what we do.
Your company has been around for quite some time, for many years, but the revenue is quite frankly quite low. Why is that? Is it because of the lack of supply, or you have some other projects going on, or?
We don't think the revenue is low. When I started at the company, the revenue was $200,000 a year. We valued was what we call natural growth, so that we could grow the company on the basis of one customer telling another, word of mouth. And we never wanted to have to spend a lot of money on advertising in order to build up the brand.
Have you ever thought of making a production site in Russia? And if you did, were you looking into finding partners?
We make, I think as Corey mentioned, we look for factories that are making the highest quality of a particular kind of good. So rain jackets tend to come from Vietnam. A lot of the insulation is made in China. There's some expertise in Latin America for making knit goods. And so we look for that, and there's no reason we're not in Russia.
So a question about the internal culture and the decision-making process and the values. Why your values are so different from other companies, and how all the processes take place.
Right. When we started Patagonia, we had so little experience that I think we would gather people around the table. For instance, the first time I went to a trade show, I didn't know what a trade show was, how you prepared for it. Nobody else knew either. So we would all sit around a table and said, oh, we've got to think of this, we've got to think of that. And the culture sort of developed along those lines as a kind of consensus culture. And a consensus culture can be problematic at times because it's hard to arrive at a decision and then stick to it. But the advantage of a consensus culture is that everybody who's affected by a decision has had something to say about it. And so we have very high levels of employee engagement and very high levels of commitment to major projects.
How do you develop the project? When you develop it, do you still have in mind a very narrow segments, or you try to develop a product for a mass market?
We've never developed for a mass market because of the restrictions on quality. We still have targeted markets, including climbers, surfers, fly fishermen, trail runners, and skiers. And so we make clothes specifically for those products. But a lot of the products we make can also be used by anyone who's spending a lot of time outdoors, whether it's underwear or insulation. And then we do make, here's the food, we do make, and the sportswear has always had a broader appeal.
Question about personnel. How do you choose who do you hire, and what specific qualities are you looking for in your employees in US and in Japan, let's say, or in different countries?
They would be the same qualities. We're lucky now, we're very well known. So when we're hiring, we can look for people who have strong skills and strong experience in their particular area, if they're a fabric maker or if they're a salesperson or they're in finance. But we're also looking for alignment of values, because that's very critical.
So do I understand it correctly that you don't have the budgets or KPIs? Like,
Oh, no,
how
we
do
do.
you structure the business? How
Oh,
do
we
you
do.
organize it then?
We have margin goals and sales goals and budgets annually. And we have, every department has a series of goals for every fiscal year. And employees have goals. I'm of mixed mind about how useful some of these goals are, because things change the minute you write them. But I think for the big goals, it's very important, like the big environmental goals and the big goals for product innovation, that everybody be engaged in those.
We don't quite understand then, how does independency and the budget cohabitate? Like when the person needs to take a decision, does the person follow the budget rules, or he just takes an independent decision?
Well, it's a question of how you create the budget rules. So, I mean, it's important to allow, I think, small groups enough room in the budget to experiment, that it not be that tight. But we follow the budget, but how you innovate, how you is something that very much left for the groups to decide. So in some cases it may be that the budget should be more modest in order to allow the team some time to grow and to develop something, rather than to say, okay, we want a 30% growth in this line, and everybody's kind of scrambling to achieve that, even though the product is not ready or the market is not ready for it. So the question is that the budget should serve the business rather than the business serve the budget. John Mackey says that he would not have sold Whole Foods to Amazon if he had been a B Corp.
Could you explain more, what is a B Corp?
It's a movement of businesses that define what they believe in, what their values are, and write those into their articles of incorporation. But more important, B Corps we allow ourselves to be audited, every 2 years in a very holistic way that looks at how our activity affects our employees, the communities we operate in, our suppliers, our customers, and you get an evaluation from a score of 0 to 200. We have been a B Corp now for 7 years.
Why do you need this?
There are a couple of reasons you need it. One, this is the only holistic assessment of our social and environmental impact. We're also able to talk to other B Corps. It forms a community of its own. And it also, there's 34 states now have a status called benefit corporation, which is a legal status. And what it means is that if any of the Chouinard children, if they ever sell stock, whoever buys into the Patagonia company has to agree to the values that are written in the business charter and the articles of incorporation.
Move on to innovation technology. How do you work with that? How does the department function? For example, you get the feedback from the customers and then you start working, or how is it going?
Well, for technical performance, we're most interested in who are the athletes doing the most difficult climbs, say, in the most difficult conditions. And so we'll have athletes like that testing the gear. That makes a difference. But again, the fabrics really make such a huge difference for us.
Do you know if your innovation process is different from other companies, let's say Decathlon or other companies that are dealing with innovation of fabrics and all that?
I think because we're actually fairly large for an outdoor company, so we deal with fabric suppliers, but we also deal with universities. We're developing new technologies. There's another side to innovation I'd like to talk about, though, in the food business. Going back to this question of regenerative agriculture. And so for us, when that has become the focus of innovation for our food company, is to solve those problems in agriculture, but to create a product out of it that people will buy, so that you support the effort not through a government action, but through a business action.
So, question about the life warranty for the product.
Yeah.
Is that true that you have a life warranty?
Yes.
And, who took that decision and how does it work? Is it a good model?
Yeah, I think it's a good model. The customers, it creates a lot of trust in the product because the customer knows we will back it. We've always had that lifetime guarantee. We also take back products for recycling at the end of their life.
What do you think the world will look like in 5 years in all of its aspects?
I think what we're seeing is an acceleration of the climate crisis, and that's going to become more evident in the next 5 years. And also the water shortages and the loss of biodiversity. And what we've seen socially in the last 5 years has been very difficult all around the world, with refugees and also with economies that support some people very well and a lot of people not well at all. So I think that the objective conditions for all of us as human beings are going to get more difficult. But I also think that we will have an opportunity. That's why I think it's very important in our business lives, to be able to address some of these problems and to be able to create some solutions and to create some conversations about where we're going to go going forward. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming and for your questions.